There.
Welcome into the Legislative Lounge, where I am your host, Natebige, with my co-host here, Professor Mike. We want to welcome you guys into a special edition pre-election, which is Tuesday, and we're going to break down a couple different items here that is been kind of on the controversy in this episode, and we're going to go right into Agenda 47 and really tell you guys about it. But to start off, we're actually going to clear up some misconceptions about what a president can and cannot do in their capacity. Because honestly, a lot of people got this logic or this theory of saying the president is the most powerful man or woman in the world. And honestly, that's just not true. Because in all reality, it's Congress who has the authority and power even over the president. Because again, even if the legislation is pushed through in Congress and the president vetoes it, Congress can say, hey, you know what, buddies? We got 2/3. We're going to push it through anyways. So let's get right into it. We're going to go into Article 2 of the Constitution, and Mike's going to break that down for us because that's actually where it talks about the duties of the president.
All right. So when you look at Article 2, Section 2, it describes what the president can actually do. And I know there was a lot of controversy about a recent Supreme Court case regarding immunity. So the president only has immunity in regards to the duties and responsibilities outlined in Section 2 of Article 2 of the United States Constitution. So what can the president do? Well, the president can pass executive orders as long as they align with national security or foreign relations, right? If it dips into any type of financial, nope, can't do it. That enters the realm of the legislative branch, which is outlined in Article 1. Okay. Foreign relations is a big one. And so when we talk about this, the president can remove us from treaties, right? Like the Paris Climate Accords, how Trump removed us from those. That was a big one. So the president can't just do anything on a whim. When it comes to executive power, everything is detailed right in here, as you can see. And for example, one of Trump's policies, it pertains to the border, right? This is where a lot of his power can be executed. He can reestablish Remain in Mexico policy, and he can put forth military assets to strengthen national security.
Right. And a lot of people, like, for instance, I break it down to the simplest form for people when I'm talking to them. There's basically two things that the president can do. They can influence foreign trades, which then also does, i.e., affect our economical standards and whatnot, like deregulating and regulating specific drillings, for instance, in regards to oil. Also regulations with manufacturing and whatnot. They can influence those trade deals by doing executive orders and within their power. But also, most importantly, they're doing things with our national security, like the border, the crisis with immigration, and then also our overall relations on a foreign stage.
Yeah, so all the law enforcement agencies are an extension of the executive branch. And when it comes to any type of national security, whether it be, customs and border enforcement, the president can actually enforce those laws to be followed and charge those individuals at the Border Patrol to actually do their job and keep these illegal aliens out. So.
Absolutely. And a lot of times, there's a huge misconception with this, but more so in the direction of Donald Trump himself and this propaganda that the Democrats still to this day, which is just hilarious, that they're running with when it comes to like Project 2025 and saying that it's his project and that he's the one boasting it up and that it aligns with the Agenda 47. And in all reality, it doesn't. Project 2025 is a project that's been in place since 1981 by the Heritage Foundation. A lot of people already know that because the Heritage Foundation came out and literally said they've been presenting this since 81 to every single presidential candidate. And yet they still want to sit here and lie to the American people saying, nope, nope, it's Donald Trump. He's championing it and all this other nonsense. And I know Professor Mike is pretty well versed in it because he's crazy enough to go through all 922 pages of it, I believe is what the number is. So, Mike, tell us a little bit of why they are different.
So, like Nate was saying, like the Heritage Foundation began the Presidential Transition Project is what it's actually called, the mandate for leadership, if you will. So every 4 years that a new president is elected, they have this project, and it gets fine-tuned with each president that gets elected or passes. So this is actually how Obama conceived Obamacare through the Heritage Foundation. Now, Agenda 47 is Donald Trump's policies, right? Project 2025 reformulates and kind of goes back to the constitutionality. It puts the executive branch under a fine-tooth comb. That way it's better managed, right? Instead of being able to weaponize, let's say, the Department of Justice, right? Kind of reins in that control, gets back to the constitutionality, making the government smaller. And it reforms the Department of Education, right? So it's 922 pages. There's a little bit about the VA, taking stuff like abortion out of the VA, taking gender affirmation care out of the VA, which I don't know why abortion or that is in the VA system, because those are not service-connected disabilities.
But then also real quick, though, just talking on this topic of abortion, in Project 2025, they're actually calling, now correct me if I'm wrong, calling for a nationwide ban, correct?
So they have the understanding that I do. So they understand that abortion is a medical procedure. And when it comes to medical emergencies, they refer to Dr. 𝗪𝗓𝗪𝗧, who worked out in New York, and says when it comes to medical emergencies that involve a pregnancy, abortions are not used. So, and when it comes to unborn life, they see that life as having rights from the moment of conception. I have no problem with the national ban because I believe abortion is abused.
Right, and I understand your stance on it, and I believe that's the same stance that the Heritage Foundation takes on it, because I've seen some of their leaders, even the president before he stepped down after this whole debacle with President Trump, he talked about a national ban being in there as well, which is contrary to what Donald Trump actually does and believes in, which I know can be kind of controversial even within the Republican Party, because he does believe in the exceptions. So that alone just shows that it's not.
There's actually a lot of Republicans that have the same exceptions as Donald Trump because of how controversial abortion is. So just for those that may be oblivious, Donald Trump's exceptions are life of the mother, which we already covered, why that's stupid to begin with, life of the mother, and rape and incest.
Right. And that's why I say just that part alone is contradictory to what they claim as it being, Project 2025 being Donald Trump's platform, because he believes in the exemptions and he's wholeheartedly in it. He believes that if a state is to vote for it, then they should have it because they voted for it. However, that's not what Project 2025 stands for. So there's many things within Project 2025 that are basically the exact opposite of what Donald Trump stands for, or it's just they're different in some way within it. Now, obviously, it is a conservative mindset, so there's a lot of similarities in there. However, it's not his project.
Yeah,
never has been.
A lot of Project 2025, like I said, is kind of combing through government with restructuring it with a fine-tooth comb and getting it back to what the founders originally promised us, which was a small government mainly governed by we the people. And pulls in most of our military resources and reinstitutes border security and proper management, and basically provides a well managed oversight of the federal government in its entirety, and even goes into insider trading.
Wow. And I mean, I know that the whole debacle with the Democrats, and specifically Kamala Harris, because she said it directly out of her mouth herself, saying, "Oh, it's Donald Trump's Project 2025." But the funny thing about Kamala Harris is that her entire base, from beginning to end, now she sprinkled some stuff in there here and there as of lately because they had to build it out because a lot of people started catching on, but her entire base of what she runs on are social issues and not within the realm of what the president can make a difference in, because they don't have the power to.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. And like, if we were even to examine her policies on her campaign website, none of her policies have anything to do or fall within the confines of power dictated by the Constitution and Article 2.
And
So,
just to show, here's a couple of them.
so
Like,
if you go to our campaign website, you go to the top of the page under tabs, you'll see issues, and you can click a new way forward, which will bring you to our policy page. It's split up by two sections, section 1 and section 2. There's 13 policies. All of them have to do with some type of monetary assistance. Now, monetary assistance, or the purse, is regulated by the legislative branch, which falls under Article 1. So her policies are all a bunch of false promises because she doesn't have the power to keep them. All those policies have to do with congressional action. Congress Congress has to pass those $20,000 business loans or whatever they are.
Like right here, these are the two biggest ones that she's really running off of. Is promising new first-time home buyers, which honestly, there's a lot of caveats even into that, because you have to be a first-generation home buyer here in America as well. Nobody talks about that, and the fact that they just don't have the means to do this. First of all, it's the whole gambit with the Biden-Harris administration promising different student loan forgivenesses and things like that, but obviously all of them fall flat on their face because the Supreme Court knows, hey, that's not your job, that's Congress.
So I wanted to just give you a little insight, because I know you don't look at this as much as I do, especially after today. I've been, just to give you a little insight, been debating colonists borders all day. Not really just debating, but kind of just asking the question, like, what policy does she have that falls within the confines? If you were to bring that back up and just open chapter 7 right there.
Yep.
So if you just hit the plus icon on chapter 7, everybody can see the language being used. It is word salad like you cannot believe. There's actually no plan, no descriptors on what she's actually going to do that will provide this new way forward. So, like, when we look at Agenda 47, it's actually pretty clear and concise on what Donald Trump's actually going to do. Just the first policy is amazing.
Right, and we're definitely going to dive into that here in a second. So let's go right into it. One of the biggest things that Donald Trump on his own website, that first and foremost, is making sure that, first of all, America comes first. And by doing that, it's making sure that our border is protected.
So if we look at number 1, that's border protection. And what he plans on doing is reinstating all of the policies that existed in the Trump administration, and re-engaging the construction of the wall, and actually providing that executive authority to the Customs and Border Patrol to do their jobs.
Right.
So those 3 things are huge.
And a lot of people that's paying attention to the polls and whatnot, it's pretty assumed at this point by most pollsters and a lot of the leaders. Even Kamala Harris's campaign has admitted to it, that they are going to lose both the House and the Senate. So it'll be read by how much is the question really at this point. And in regards to that, Mike Johnson himself came out today talking about how Donald Trump is going to reinstitute things like Remain in Mexico and all these other items that he had during his first presidency, which let in the least amount of immigrants in decades. Because, it can't be perfect unless there is an ironclad wall there. But he also reinforced it by saying that Congress will then act swiftly to reinforce those bills with actual legislation that'll provide funding to things like what Donald Trump also talks about within Agenda 47, is the fact that he wants to provide $10,000 of increased pay to each of the currently active Border Patrol, along with provide funding in regards to hiring new border agents to reinforce. Because right now, one of the biggest problems that even the Border Patrol themselves has been saying is how they are so severely understaffed. So they're going to allocate funding from more than likely they'll probably try and reallocate money from our military budget or something of that nature. They've talked about a few different ways that they could do it, and they're going to reallocate it to not only give the border agents the increase, but also give a $10,000 signing bonus to entice more workers to reinforce those border patrol areas that are really lacking.
Yeah, and you mentioned that the Border Patrol is understaffed. Unfortunately, majority of law enforcement is understaffed. Just here in Phoenix, we are severely understaffed in Phoenix PD. We're something like 700 officers short, and so it's. I look forward to having a fully staffed law enforcement.
Absolutely. Another one
And
that go ahead.
this number two carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. So everybody is, scared about this one. There's a lot of hesitancy behind it. But if you actually understand, J.D. Vance actually went into a little bit of detail with this. So what they're going to do is pay particular close attention to the criminals, right? So it's easy to catch them. You have a lot of illegal aliens committing crimes. So what they're going to do, you find someone that's committing a crime that they don't have legal authorization to be here, then they're kicked out, and they are no longer able to apply for citizenship. Okay. Now, as far as the illegal aliens that are here already that are not committing crimes, that are being productive members of society, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have already said that they would work with Congress across the aisles to create new pathways for citizenship, expedited pathways for citizenship. And a lot of people are looking right past that.
Right. Absolutely. So, and some of the other areas that Donald Trump's really going to be getting into as well is one of his main things was becoming energy independent, right? So there's actually a PDF file on Agenda 47 that you can pull up and kind of go through it a little bit. This is what it looks like. But one of the biggest things is becoming energy independent. So what he's going to do is lift the restrictions that the Biden administration had put on the American energy production, terminating the socialist Green New Deal, and Republicans will unleash energy production for all sources, including nuclear, to immediately slash inflation and power American homes, cars, and factories with reliable, abundant, and affordable energy. And how he does that is through the deregulation and cutting through the red tape that's been put into place specifically on oil production. Because, a lot of people will sit here and will say, oh, Joe Biden's, we've been drilling for more oil than any other presidency in history of America. Sure, that's fine, but the problem is that he's regulated it so much so that these oil companies cannot refine here in America. So a lot of them are required per these regulations to actually outsource to places like Venezuela. So that is what's causing the increase in pricing when it comes to our at the pump and whatnot. And in turn, because companies need gas to transport goods, transport food and whatnot, that costs money and their overage, so they have to increase the pricing of their products. So right away, when you deregulate and cut through the red tape and bring refining back to America, that automatically reduces prices across the board.
Facts. If we can go back to that beginning page where it lists the different policies. So, end inflation, make America affordable again. It's pretty easy to do when you deregulate and stop artificially inflating the economy, which is exactly what Kamala Harris wants to do with all of these proposed $25,000 grants, and especially when it comes to the housing market. The housing market is a fickle beast. So if you plan on, so there's 1.7 million first-time home buyers in America every year for the past decade. If you plan on giving 1.7 million first-time home buyers $25,000, you're going to hit $60 billion annually. Where's that money going to come from? It's going to come from us, the taxpayer, because the federal government doesn't have money. They get their money from us. So, and that's going to create increase in taxes, federal income taxes, and that's going to superinflate the housing market to where right now the current national average for a house for your average family is 400 grand nationally. That's going to double that price just like that. You're going to see $700,000, $800,000 homes for single family homes.
Right, absolutely. And another area that he's always talking about is the manufacturing, because he has heavy investments in manufacturing came into the play. He's going to cut through again. They over regulated for instance, the auto and manufacturing industry. I say that because I come from Michigan, which used to be the manufacturing capital of automobiles here in America, and on this Western hemisphere, honestly. But because of the huge amount of regulations that have been put in place, a lot of companies like the big three is what we call them in Michigan: Chrysler, Ford, and Chevrolet. They've all started to move away. Like before Biden got into place and started re-implementing some of the restrictions and regulations on these manufacturing companies, Ford had plans to build a multi-billion-dollar complex, and they were trying to decide whether or not they were going to do it in Michigan, or I believe it was Tennessee. But because of those regulations, they're like, oh man, the overage is going to be way over, and we're not going to be making anywhere near what we looked for in regards to our forecasts. So they scrapped the plans and moved it to Mexico. So what he's going to do is he's going to re-implement the cost-saving measures that he had in place by deregulating those restrictions on the manufacturing companies. But also, he's going to take a look at tariffs. He's going to say, look, you're an American company. If you want to do stuff overseas or across our borders, go ahead. But we're going to make sure that you pay for it. And it's not going to.
I love the tariff. I love the tariff conversation because, as you and I know, nobody understands his premise on enacting these tariffs. And
Right.
it's actually a twofold system what he wants to eventually do and move to. And that involves abolishing the federal income tax completely. And I love that so much. It moves towards so what he has gathered a lot of his ideas from is the 1890 President McKinley's tariff plan. So during President McKinley's time, the country ran off of tariffs, and you would tariff foreign companies that were importing their resources, their goods. And what that would do is entice those companies to establish a base of operations in the United States to escape those tariffs. That's what tariffs do. Instead of relying on the American people to fund America, you rely on the foreign entities to pay the tax. You
Right.
gouge the competition, not your own people.
Right. And a lot of people get this misconception like thinking, oh, they're just going to pass that price down to the product. No, what that does is it forces them to come to America, creating more jobs and then also allows them to create a product here and get it direct to the customer. So the pricing should be the same, or else they won't be able to do it. It forces companies here in America also to produce, be able to. Well, it doesn't force them. It allows them to produce an equivalent product that Americans look to see is cheaper from something else. But
Mhm.
a lot of the people will talk about how he wants, these tariffs that are going to increase the pricing, but also don't look at it from two sides. It's like he's forcing these companies to come here, make the product, make it cheaper, or there's going to be an equivalent made here that's going to be the same price as what they want to sell it in the first place. And then also all of these tax cuts. Like if we can actually put, now that's something that he has to do through Congress, which he understands, but he's working with people like Mike Johnson, even though, Mike Johnson is Mike Johnson, but he's working with Congress to put forward a lot of different areas. Like he's wanting to make you hear it all the time, the Trump tax cuts. He wants to make that permanent because Congress didn't do it the first time around. So he's going to do that. He's going to eliminate tax on tips. So that makes it easier on a lot of the hospitality workers and a lot of those areas. And, like car drivers and Uber and all them people that do that full time, and get tips and basically live off of tips. They won't have to deal with that as well. So there's a lot of cost cutting measures. He's going to expand the tax credit, the child tax credit, in a lot of different areas as well. So
Yeah.
all of that, along with that, actually, in the end, economists have talked about it. And Mike, I know you've talked about the actual numbers, so maybe you can go into that in a second. Is
Mhm.
that a lot of economists show the differentiation of the increased prices from the tariffs versus the tax cut. Americans will actually have more in their pocket in the end.
So, you know, I think Nate, you run off a salary, right?
Yes.
I work hourly, and so whenever I work overtime, it is taxed, and it makes it worth. Makes it almost not worth it to work the overtime because you're taxed at such a significant rate, and you're not really making that much more than your normal paycheck. So
Mhm.
this elimination of the taxes on overtime would be very beneficial, especially to guys like me who rely off an hourly rate and I live paycheck to paycheck.
Mhm.
But as far as comparing the economic systems, now you can refer to Goldman Sachs studies because and you can refer to the Wharton School of Finance because the problem with Democrats is they only give you half the information. They tell you that for the average family, the cost of consumer goods will go up $5,000 annually, right?
Mhm.
What they don't tell you is with the abolishment of the federal income tax, after taking into account that $5,000 increase in consumer goods, the average family will pocket anywhere between $10,000 to $15,000 annually. That is what's left in the Wharton School of Finance and the Goldman Sachs economic study reviews.
Mhm.
So that's what they're not telling you. So, and this country was not supposed to be based on a bracketed tax system. You could look at this in Article 1, Section 7, I believe. The taxes are supposed to be uniform across the board, and they're not supposed to be able to tax you on every form of income. So, and if you look at this, we didn't move to a federal tax system until 1913 through the 16th Amendment.
Mhm.
And when you look at that, that is when you had some socialist ideologues and in the Democrat Party start to get influenced by foreign entities and started to say, you know what, I think we should tax the citizens, and that way we can put more in our pockets. And what you've seen these individuals just balloon, and then we had a lot more things that came up through that.
Right. Right. And I mean, another area that a lot of people kind of don't look to is the fact that he continuously talks about getting rid of a lot of the people within the three-letter agencies, when in all reality, that actually could help Americans save money because if he's making these people do the job that they're supposed to be doing, and because of what was the bill called that they overturned? We just talked about it recently. from the Supreme Court that makes these makes the three-letter
Oh,
agencies the
the Chevron difference.
Chevron difference. Man, I don't know why I cannot remember that, but the Chevron difference is
That's the second time.
I know. The Chevron difference is something that allows these company or these three-letter agencies to basically interpret laws and apply funding wherever they want because it makes it an ambiguous way of understanding how they should operate. And in all reality, he's going to eliminate those people that think that they still can do those kind of things, along with the Chevron difference being overturned and putting new people into those positions, like the head of the FBI, the DOJ, all these other things, where they're going to actually implement budgets that's going to help save the American people money because those are our tax dollars.
So I love, when we look at these and the weaponization of the government against the American people, that's beautiful. And what I think what I brought to Nate's attention today was something that you may not all be familiar with. Everybody loves TikTok except for conservatives. And what's interesting about TikTok, especially the woman who runs the health, what is it, safety and security side of TikTok, the community guidelines, if you will, is actually an underling of Kamala Harris when Kamala Harris was the Attorney General in California. She was the Assistant Attorney General. Her name is Miss Loftus. So,
and honestly,
yeah, go ahead, Nate.
I was just gonna say, like, honestly, if people actually think about this thing, they have agencies like the NSA, the FBI, all these other three-letter agencies allotting money to literally spying and censoring American speech through a various number of different ways, through social media, through whatever they need, right? So if you put people in place that isn't going to do that kind of stuff, which is illegal, and it just infringes on our constitutional rights, then they can actually allocate money in the areas that is going to be useful for the American people rather than against us. So it's just changing the mindset of how our government works altogether, so that way it actually helps us rather than goes against us.
Mm-hmm. So let's look at this. Prevent World War III, restore peace in Europe and in the Middle East, and build a great Iron Dome missile defense shield over our entire country. What actually kicked off the Ukraine-Russia was legit a failure of Kamala Harris's part in negotiating terms. So between Zelensky and Putin. The reason Putin never did a full-scale invasion into Ukraine is because of Trump. Trump is not a man to mess around with. Mm-hmm. Trump literally had a meeting with the Taliban, the leader of the Taliban, and said, you're going to do A, B, and C. And if you harm a single hair on an American's head, I will end your life. And he gave him a picture of his house. That is gangster.
And again, like, we can even turn this into a money-saving thing because honestly, that's what he's a businessman. He's looking to help Americans save money and stop the wasteful spending of our American tax dollars, right? And that has been the biggest issue with Americans over the last 4 years is Congress and the Biden administration doing things outside of what the American people want. So if you actually think about it, people will sit here and say, oh, Trump's just a bully. Fine, that's great. Be the bully as long as it doesn't make us have to go and give more money to Ukraine because they're trying to fight a ridiculous war that means nothing, honestly.
I want a bully. I want a leader. This is the commander-in-chief of the military. The military is not meant to be about your feelings. The military is establishing dominance, and I want the commander-in-chief to be dominant when it comes to foreign relations. I want the rest of the world to know that we are number one, that we are not to be messed with. We are not to be stepped on. We are not to be taken lightly. And if you harm any one of the hairs on our heads, we are going to flatten you.
Right. And again, I could pull this back into an economical reason. When you have strong leadership, nobody messes with you. And then you don't have to allocate extra funding for any skirmishes or wars because of it.
Look what Trump did to ISIS. They said it would take him months. he dominated inside a couple, I think inside a month. So I was in the military during that time. Well, I was so excited that we might deploy to go over there, and then bam, it's over. I was pissed.
Right. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things in Agenda 47 that just absolutely helps the American people with the ridiculous spending that our Congress is doing. And honestly, that's what the president's supposed to do, is he puts them in check, the checks and balances, right? So when we get to the point of, oh, they're going to push through, like even if the Democrats were to win something, win the House or whatever, to where they can push through legislation, let's just say in a scenario, they take the House and the Senate, right? In some ridiculous world where that's not going to happen, let's just say, and they push through a bill, veto, because you know dang well they're not going to get the 3/5, the 3/4 or 2/3, sorry, 2/3 majority with what they're going, even if they won it by a little bit, because that's all they're going to. If Democrats win the House and the Senate, which I know for a fact they won't, if they did, it's only going to be by a small margin. So having a strong leader like Trump in place saves money because of those ridiculous spending bills. He'll just, nope, go back to the drawing board. Because in all reality, people don't understand that Americans have not had a full scale budget since 2001. They continue what they've been doing since 2001 is called a continuous resolution. It's basically them taking the original plan that was issued out on 2001 and saying, "Hey, we need to add more to this debt, this more, this more," and they keep doing it every quarter that is required. And yet that's why we've amounted, what is it, 35 trillion dollars in debt.
Yeah, it's just kicking the can down the road. It does away with any type of financial responsibility by Congress, and we the people should be holding them accountable. There should be a budget put into place. There should be a check on their spending. It's irresponsible. I was just, researching like I do. Did you know Congress put aside like $450,000 for a transgender monkey study?
I don't put anything past Congress anymore because of the ridiculous notion of the people that are in there, like Kamala Harris when she was in there. And even to this day, she's advocating for prisoners to have sex change surgery paid for by the American tax dollars.
Oh, I think I told you this yesterday, but I don't know if everybody else knows it. But as you know, I was helping my mom with her ballot because she's in Cali. Mm-hmm. Now, Cali had some amendment proposals on their ballot. One of the proposals was to do away with involuntary servitude for punishment for a crime. Now, if people don't understand that, that means they're going to do away with putting criminals in jail and in prison. Because when you arrest somebody, you are placing that person into involuntary servitude. And if they're going to do away with that, like, what, are you going to have anarchy? What is this, the purge?
I mean, when it comes to California, like the law, they're wondering why they're having such a massive exodus in California, because they keep pushing these ridiculous bills and things of that nature. And honestly, it's, people are getting sick of it. Honestly, I would not be surprised in the next decade or two, you see California flip on its heel, if not sooner, because people are getting tired of the ridiculous bills and laws that they're putting into place and the funding, and it's been seeping into Congress over the last few decades.
Yeah. Actually, a lot of Californians, because I'm from Cali, I know how red it is. You get out of San Francisco and you get out of LA, it's red. They're just the population density in those areas is extreme. Mm-hmm. And the sad part is even the leftists are tired of California and they're moving. They're just dumb and keep bringing their stupid policies to the rest of the United States.
Right.
Look at Austin. Look at Phoenix.
I mean, they're the whole state of New York. Like, they're literally worried about New York flipping right now because of how ridiculous everything is in regards to the policies. They're sick of the governors. Like they ousted one governor, Cuomo, and then put in basically his the female version of him. And yet
Yeah.
they're wanting some new person, and the whole thing with the immigrants there, they're done with it. Like
Yeah.
there are
No.
so many New Yorkers that I know that are voting for Trump this time around. I would not be surprised if he flits it.
Did you happen to see the Madison Square Garden event?
Massive.
Like I think Eric Trump said like 250,000 altogether with inside and outside.
That's crazy. In New York. New
Like
York, New
that's
York.
a blue haven, but they're
And
tired.
And here to even further our point, right? The city of New York itself, right? New York City has been held by Democrats for basically forever, with over a 90% rating in regards to the number of votes that they get during an election cycle, right? You guys see those polls all the time. They hit over 90% every single year. Biden was even polling better than Kamala Harris, but Kamala Harris right now, it was 2 days ago, so I don't know if it's gone up or down, but even still, even if it's gone up a few points, it's only at 66%
Listen,
in New York City.
Biden. Honestly, if we compare 2020 to now, Biden has polled better than Harris in every metric.
Right.
So,
I mean,
like, how does a black woman poll worse for the black community than the white guy? The
because if
old
you don't
white
vote for
racist
Biden, you
guy.
ain't black. You gotta love it. I mean, that's the whole shtick, and that's what minorities like myself, the native and the Hispanic, and then also the black communities is like. We're seeing through the BS of saying, "Oh, we're playing these identity politics. You got to vote for me because you got brown and black skin." They're starting to wake up, but even their own people, like our own, you don't know how many times me and Saul have been called coconuts and all this other stuff, and then the words that they say to the black conservatives nowadays. It's just it's nonsense. It's just
What?
identity politics up and down, and that's the entire
Well,
base of the Democrats.
I can't imagine how embarrassing it was for the men in the community to have Barack Obama just belittle men for choosing Trump. Saying that these black men, these black conservatives are voting against their own interests. That is racist in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like what we have gotten to the point where the entire Democrat platform is virtue signaling. That's all
Right.
they got because they don't have policies.
Right. And Harley
Exactly.
couldn't have said it any better than this. It's because they know she's fake.
Yeah.
Everything she does is fake. You could see it by her body language. You could see it by like this whole gambit about her being a Christian all of a sudden is another thing that I'm gonna go off on a tangent on because you know how I am when people that call themselves a Christian. Like it's just hilarious to see that she's sitting out here condemning Christians at her own rally, and I don't care what you say. She said it to that person because there's multiple angles of videos. She said it to that person that said Christ is Jesus is King, Christ is Lord, and they said you're at the wrong rally. There's multiple angles. No, there wasn't somebody saying, "Oh, there's a lie. These are lies." No, there's multiple angles. So don't give me that BS. And then what was it? The next day or two, she went to some mega church talking about how she loves the Lord and all this other stuff, and
But
that
wait, she kicked people out of their own church.
right. We saw, people are like, oh, shit, they were just hecklers. No, it was like the lady came out and said she was an actual attendee of that church being kicked out of her own church. Right. But then even a couple days after that, she went on the news, some kind of town hall for, I believe it was CNN, saying how she was, she prays every single day. And I don't know, twice a day, sometimes too. I'm like, you could tell just by the way she was just trying to think of something to say, like she kept taking these long pauses, looking to the right, and all this other stuff that just screams, "I'm full of shit."
So, like when you compare Kamala Harris to Donald Trump, like just think about the Joe Rogan podcast that just happened. Donald Trump did 3 hours with Joe Rogan, unscripted, just back and forth. JD Vance did 3 hours with Joe Rogan, unscripted,
Almost
back and
four.
forth. Yeah. It was long. I've only watched about 57 minutes of it. And so Kamala Harris was going to do Joe Rogan, but she had stipulations. She wanted Joe Rogan to fly to her and only do an hour. And I bet you she wanted it scripted. I bet you she wanted it edited. And Joe
Well,
Rogan's like, no,
yeah,
absolutely not.
he's already confirmed the fact that she was trying to put stipulations on it, on how they were gonna do it, that she only wanted it an hour or less, and all this other nonsense. Like,
It's
you obviously don't know who Joe Rogan is.
like dude can have a beautiful conversation with anybody if you allow it. And the
Right.
dude is highly intelligent. And the fact that, like, if she doesn't do this interview,
She's not
she's
going to.
I
Oh,
know she's not
we
going
got
to.
what? We got 4 days, 5 days until the election. She's not doing it. You know she ain't doing it.
I could hope. I would love for Joe to grill her because you know he's going to.
Mhm.
He
Mhm.
grilled Trump.
Yeah, he did actually, and that's the thing that people don't understand about Joe Rogan. He's literally come out and said he's not a Trump supporter. He was just supporting RFK. He's voting for Trump now more than likely. He hasn't confirmed it, but he's going to because RFK is going to be a part of his cabinet.
All of a sudden, everybody's against RFK. But I
Oh, I'm
guess
not. I actually advocated for him to be his vice president for
I,
months.
I meant all the Democrat Party.
Oh, oh,
All of a sudden, everybody's against RFK. But I guess the Democratic Party has a history of being against the Kennedys.
absolutely. And then the nice thing about that is we're actually going to be going into a lot of that along with the election coming up on Tuesday. So we have so tonight's not our normal night that we go live. Technically, we were trying to do a recording for tomorrow for you guys, but we're a little new to this, a little cracked in the head, so we didn't get that figured out. Even though we are live. So we thank you guys for coming in. But typically, we go live on Fridays at 6 p.m. Central Time. However, this Monday at 7 p.m. Central, which is our normal time, is a special episode where we're actually going to be bringing a panel of social media giants. And we
Mhm.
are so excited about it. Like, this is who we're bringing in. And a lot of these faces, if you're in the TikTok world or the social media world in general, you know who these individuals are. So we're going to have
Mhm.
Logic and Liberty, huge, one of the biggest female creators out there when it comes to political content. She's been on TV. She's been a part of actual political roundtables across the nation, especially in
Mhm.
Colorado, where she comes from. And then everybody knows older millennial. I mean, this man is on the
That's a controversial individual.
but he puts out, he's one of the largest creators on TikTok, even though they keep banning him consistently. So he's really on X right now, but he's actually going to be on Fox News again tomorrow. He texted me today. So look out for that. But he has one of the strongest presence on social media when it comes to calling out the crap on both sides, honestly, which is one of the things that I respect about him. We have different opinions on some things, which is great, but he is able to bring a sense of understanding and realness, honestly, in a lot of cases, in my opinion, to the everyday American. He doesn't mince his words. He has his opinions and he runs with them. And then
Yeah.
the next one, conservative ant, one of the greatest people I have ever met in my life. Love this man to death. He has been all over. He probably has the biggest presence out of all four of these in the political world. I mean, this man shakes hands with Donald Trump. He goes to Mar-a-Lago. He does different branding deals with a lot of political scenes, and he's conservative ant. Like, if you don't
Yeah.
know who he is, you must live under a rock. Let's just put it like.
He ran a lot of the resource operations going into Jackson, Mississippi, and then you remember when they had their water crisis, and then he contributed to the hurricane resources, getting the resources up towards the hurricane victims in Florida and North Carolina. And this man does it all,
Mhm.
and
A lot of value.
he is genuine. He is a genuine, kind soul. Love him to death.
I mean, these guys got millions of followers on social media across several platforms, and you wouldn't know it if you talked to them.
Real quick, I will say, I'm holding Ant in my prayers because he did lose his dog yesterday. So, I feel incredible sympathy for him in that aspect. Aunt,
Absolutely.
love you if you watch this.
Absolutely. And then one of the most amazing, also one of the most down to earth, just loving people that I've ever met in Jamming Lou. Like, if you don't know who he is, please go find him. He is one of the coolest people that you will ever meet. He fights with nobody. He even hosts lives on TikTok with several content creators that are completely opposite to his views. And he's just a loving, just outreaching type of person. And as of recently, he's actually been a huge part of the, I believe it's called Hispanic Leaders of America. I believe is what the roundtable is, that actually just met with Donald Trump recently. So he was able to shake hands, and he's starting to make big moves for the Hispanic community within the Republican Party. So definitely reach out to him if you don't know him. He's all over social media as well.
And if I'm not mistaken, I do believe Ant and Lou were invited to the RNC.
Yes, that's where Lou actually started the, I believe that's where he's got involved with Hispanics of America, Leaders of America. I believe that's what it's called. He'll correct us if I'm wrong. You'll hear him on Monday. But yeah, so Monday at 7 p.m. Central Time, we're gonna go through each one of these, and they all give different perspectives because some are from Colorado, two of them are from Florida, one's from Texas, and they've been traveling all over the country. So we're gonna get a lot of different perspectives and understanding of what's going on around the world. And then finally, we're going to run through scenarios, and they're going to give us their prediction on what they expect on Tuesday and into the actual finalization of the election.
I can't wait. I am so excited for this. These are such insightful, intelligent people, and a lot of them are controversial. A lot, a lot of them have a different set of views than us, like you said. I can't wait. We've known these people for you and I have known these people for a while.
Hmm.
Um, so well, it's time we wrap things up. And if you're not following us already, follow us on YouTube, Twitch, Rumble, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, and Patreon. That way you can tune in so you can hear us bring the truth between the lies. Have a good day. And Lou. Okay, it's going to be an amazing time.